Anyway, so I'm waiting for these results, right? I decide while I'm in a hotel traveling, I'm gonna just go down to the treadmill because I'm chubby, whatever. I'm still cute though. Anyway, so I get on the treadmill, and 2 days later, my period returns.
Oh, thank you, Jehovah. I mean,
Child please, child please. If you want it, you got it, go get it. Child please, child please.
Now, on the one hand, I'm like, wait a second, I thought we had made an agreement that this was over. But on the other hand, it was very good to recognize. I learned a few things. I learned one, the body is a system.
yes.
It's a system.
And it all works together. It tells
and it
you
works
everything
together.
you need to
the
know.
things you put into it are what you get out of it. So if you stop something that's been good for you all this time, you stop doing it, the body will be like, we dying now. Like we thought we were
It
running
takes things
marathons,
very
but instead we're
literally.
dying.
It takes things
Very
very literally. Yes. Yes.
The second thing I learned is that even though I am cute chubby, that the fact that all of these elastic waists that I've been wearing all this time are actually is actually real weight, and I need to take that off. And my body clearly doesn't want it on, so it's because it's jacking with my knobs and whistles and pulleys because it's like something right here. So I am back in, but that is it. It just was this crazy sort of, am I in menopause? Am I in perimenopause?
Yeah.
Am I, what's going on? Am I joyfully excited about, the freedom of my body again?
Am I pregnant?
Am I pregnant with Jesus's baby? It would have to be a divine intervention, Lord. I would be walking on water with this big pregnant belly if I was actually pregnant, because it's been a long
And
time.
I would babysit girl on Christmas. And
you would have to. You'd have to be rocking the manger.
Once a weekend in the summer. That's my schedule.
Oh, thank you. That's when you'd babysit.
That's my schedule, honey. That's my schedule.
So
that's amazing, because
so appropriate that this was going on at this time when we were going to have this conversation.
Yeah, because I feel like my period go hail, sleet, snow, whatever. That thing is coming. It never stops. Like, it is always persevering. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but at the same time, I've had a period since I was easily 12, 13. And sometimes it surprises me still. And I'm like,
Well, that's how I am with PMS. I'm like, why am I so tired? It's like every month, this is what it is.
Why
I'm always
am I
like,
eating
I don't
every
know.
bread item in my house? Why am I eating white bread like it's delicious?
And then it hits me like, that's why.
Let me go look at the calendar.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm right there. I am right there. Well, what are we getting into today, Ivy?
Woo! Well, today, one of the topics that we wanted to really explore, because people do not talk about it enough, is both menopause and the dreaded, the mysteries of perimenopause. So very excited to be having this conversation today.
We are getting into it. And in order to have this conversation, we are having a special guest. And we're so excited when we have special guests. Today, our special guest is Lori Tharps. She is a passionate writer whose work lands at the intersection of race in real life. Journalist, author, educator, podcast host, and public speaker, Lori uses her words to broaden the conversation around race, culture, and the human experience. Over the course of her career, she's penned articles and served as an editor at several publications, from Vibe to Essence to the New York Times and the Washington Post. And she's the award-winning author of 3 nonfiction books: Hair Story and Untangling the Roots of Black Hair in America, which we need to have an episode on, Kinky Gazpacho, Life, Love in Spain, and Same Family, Different Colors, Confronting Colorism in America's Diverse Families. And she's the author of the novel Substitute Me. But we're so excited to talk to her today about her wonderfully honest and informative podcast and community, My Bloody Hell, which is about the journey through menopause. And we are so excited to have her today. Hey, Lori.
Hello, honeys.
Hey, honey.
Here.
Yes,
you came
honey.
at just the right moment.
Honey. We need to talk.
I was nodding along to all your entire story, Ivy. That was like, I was like,
Been there.
So
Yeah.
I have to know my bloody hell. First,
The name, honey.
Let's talk about it. And then second, what led you to really want to explore menopause in a podcast?
Okay, I think I have to answer the second question first because the truth is I was actually taking a women's entrepreneurship workshop, and I was like, I want to start a business, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I had recently packed up my life, sold all my possessions, and moved to Spain. So I was like, new life, new world, like I'm going to start a business. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And the whole point of the class was, find a problem and solve it. That's what every entrepreneur does.
Absolutely.
And so I mean, I am full of ideas. I would be a rich woman if I could sell my ideas. I came up with a billion different ideas, but none of them really I would be come up with the idea, make the plan, create the framework for the business, and then be like, I don't really care about that. And coincidentally, during this time, I read an article in the Guardian newspaper that was about how much time women lose as employees because of menopause, because of perimenopausal symptoms. They use the word menopause, but essentially from, excessive bleeding, cramping, just all of the random symptoms that happen.
Ruining your desk chair and having to cover it up.
Honey, because the blood is wild. It is
so crazy.
Offensive.
Periods.
Yes.
It's a term.
It's offensive.
It's not an official term, but it's a term. And so I posted it, I post many things I find fascinating on Facebook, and usually, 2 people comment, or, my mom likes it. And this post got I don't even know, but let's just say it got something like 40 some likes, but it also got 40 some comments. And these comments, my Facebook page, my Facebook page is pretty curated. I mean, these are mostly people I know. I don't just let anybody follow me. I keep it just, show pictures of my kids for the most part, and just kind of personal stuff. But I do know a lot of people. So I have, high school friends, college friends, people from all parts of my life. And this post garnered attention from everybody I know, from all different walks of life. And the ways that women were responding, oh my gosh, this is so true. This happened to me. Nobody talks about this. It got to the point where I was feeling like I should DM people. You do realize Facebook is a public platform. You don't necessarily need to tell everybody how bloody your last period was because other people are reading this. It's not a conversation between you and me. But it showed me the need. I mean, only when you're so desperate and when you feel seen, when you feel like somebody gets you and you've been hidden for so long, is this outpouring was so obvious. I was like, okay, there's the problem. I can solve this problem. I can create a forum where women can talk about it. And I can talk. I'm not a menopause expert, but I am myself. The other side of that was that I had been going through having really weird symptoms. Ivy, this was so similar. That's why I was nodding along. My neurologist thought I might have multiple sclerosis because I had numb arms and tingling fingers.
Holy shit.
I was I was about to move abroad and all these things. I was like, I'm not moving if I have a debilitating
I have to be in a wheelchair,
disease, right?
yeah.
And so I'm freaking out, and I actually was supposed to get an MRI, and I developed claustrophobia in my late age. We should have a conversation about that. And I could not stand to go in an MRI machine. So this diagnosis took longer because it took 3 tries for them to stick me in a tube, and I just couldn't do it. They drugged me, everything. It didn't work. I ended up getting seriously electroshock therapy. It was bizarre. It was this strange random way they could test if my muscles were blah, blah, blah. It was menopause. It was estrogen fluctuations causing, and it's a rare thing, but it does happen. And if you do the research, there's actually a research center in New Zealand, of all places, that actually specializes in this condition that does happen to women. And it could happen to many, many more women, but it's so talked about so little.
Exactly.
Mhm.
The
This is the
word,
challenge. This is
yeah.
the challenge because I think that most of us don't know when the things we're experiencing are quote unquote normal.
Right.
Right. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I totally agree with you about this idea, even of Facebook being an interesting platform, because I feel like a few months ago, I had this post about the Diva Cup,
Mm.
because I became late to the game, a cup wearer. I am a diva.
Oh,
And,
I need
you
because
know,
has it? Okay, we need to have a sidebar
if Diva
about
Cup wants to sponsor this,
how
feel free. But
how
like,
do you? Yes.
but I switched to a cup and I had a whole conversation on a post on Instagram about me trying the cup and what happened and how different it was and trying these different versions of period and sanitary products that I had never tried before just because I was like, well, what the hell, And the response from that on Facebook, on Instagram, people wanting to ask more questions and what was that? And well, okay, well, how long have you been using cup? Or other people being like, oh, it was amazing. We do not talk about our periods at all.
Mm-hmm.
We do not know if the things that we're going through, the cramps, the pain, the
Yes.
nausea, the headaches, the migraines, like any of those things, we're not sure if they are, if everybody else just feels that way. And so I'm normalizing things that could be actually bad symptoms or symptoms of something worse, fibroids, etc. I think we just need to have these conversations. And so what you're saying really resonates.
It's
Yeah, and the thing
interesting.
that, oh, sorry, go ahead. So I was going to say the other thing that's what made me actually like go forward was, Ivy, to your point, is that I actually found a statistic that said that women who have a community to talk about specifically what was going on with perimenopause actually suffer less severe perimenopausal symptoms. And it wasn't like if you have a loving partner or your kids are nice to you.
He ain't helping with your perimenopause.
No, that's what it was. It was like, it really has to be women who can, relate to what you're talking about. But there's actually studies that show that. So I was like, well, then this is a no-brainer. Again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not selling herbs and spices that are going to make the menopause go away.
Or any of the other new vaginal products. Everybody wants to steam their vagina now.
Oh
Leave
my
your
God,
vagina
that
alone,
Ivy.
people.
Everybody wants to have a product that they're saying it's going to make it better. No. But we can come together, we can talk about it, take the stress levels out, because we do know that many menopausal symptoms are exacerbated by stress. So if you're stressed because you're hiding it, you're stressed because you don't know if you're dying or not, you're stressed because you want to know when it's going to be over, blah, 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 then all of those symptoms will be exacerbated. So if you do have a release, a place to get answers, a place to have a communication with other women, then yes, then that's what I wanted to do. And the My Bloody Hell, really, the title came to me in the shower. I was like, a lot of blood. And I was
As
like,
the blood was streaming down my legs, I was inspired. I feel that, honey.
There you go.
I love that. I mean, this is so enlightening to me because I've been going through things where I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, this shit could be paramount, because I've also been attributing my heavy periods to fibroids, but now I'm like, wait a minute, this could be something else. So can we talk about, because I need to be clear, what is menopause? What is perimenopause? What's the difference? Like, let's get into some of the specifics.
Yeah, and that's, it's as a writer, Felicia, I know you'll appreciate this. Like, I was shocked to find out once I got straight on what's the difference between menopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, that the word perimenopause isn't even recognized as an official word on like Microsoft Word and like other kind of, digital platforms. If you type in the word perimenopause, it's like wrong, misspelled. That's how little women's health and reproductive cycles like matters, that the word isn't even officially recognized. But here's
bootylicious is in the dictionary. Don't get me wrong, but
right? Like,
okay. I got you.
So
I got you.
Essentially, the word menopause is actually a single moment. It is the day when a woman has not had a period for 12 months straight. So you hit menopause. You don't go through menopause.
Okay.
I don't fight people when they use it incorrectly, because it's kind of been, accepted to say like, oh, I'm going through menopause, but you're not going through menopause. you are going through perimenopause. So you can think of the period of time, no pun intended, of before like the menopausal cycle, if you will, is broken into 3 parts: perimenopause, the moment you hit menopause, and then postmenopause. And each one of those time periods are marked by different hormone levels. Okay. So basically from the time you kind of hit your puberty, you have, a level of hormones. They come on all at once, right? It feels like all at once, and it feels like a surge, but then they even out, and you basically have a pretty steady hormone level. They fluctuate with your menstrual cycle, but you have a pretty steady hormone level, during our quote unquote reproductive years, which are 12 to 35, 40, right? Then you hit
unless you're Janet Jackson, because then it could be 49.
Holly Berry.
Then you hit, and this is with joke, but actually real, because nobody's exactly the same. All of these are kind of windows of time. But you say menopause is is the day when you have officially hit 12 months with no period. So the usually 4 to 7 years before you hit menopause is considered perimenopause. And that is the beginning of when our hormones begin to decrease, both estrogen and progesterone, and a little bit of testosterone too. But estrogen and progesterone are the 2 main ones that begin to decrease. And so that's when, they say that a woman's fertility starts to decrease. That's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Is effectively, that would technically be the beginning of perimenopause. But of course, even if you are beginning to see a decrease in hormones, you can still get pregnant. Fun fact, the second number of women who have the most unexpected pregnancies or unplanned pregnancies are actually women in perimenopause. So it's teenagers, and then
not
women
today,
in perimenopause.
Jesus.
See,
not
but
today.
that's what my doctor was saying. She was like, you gonna f- around and find out. You think you in menopause
Not
because your
today,
period ain't
devil.
coming, but you are fertile as a. You go out there.
That's right.
Come back,
you.
48-year-old pregnant woman.
I rebuke you.
You don't want to be that. Janet Jackson, okay. But everybody else, you
Right.
don't want to be that woman.
She's rich.
Exactly. Honey.
But you're like, oh, I'm in perimenopause. No, I'm pregnant.
But it's interesting what you're kind of describing here, though, because it means that when you say 4 to 7 years, that means that you may not even know you're in perimenopause. For example, like at one point, my doctor thought I was in perimenopause. I had one hormone panel that looked weird, but then the following up months, it was totally normal. She was like, no, false alarm. Keep you're good.
Yeah.
So like until you actually have a doctor who is monitoring your hormone levels, or you have some way to do that yourself that manages those, that's the only time you'll know you're in perimenopause. Otherwise, you just might be tired and hot, and it might not actually be anything else.
The thing is that, the thing is, you don't actually have to have the hormone panel. And I say that because a lot of health insurance won't do that. It's not covered. And which is, again,
as usual,
you'll see that underlying my entire conversation is the fact that it's obvious that women's health does not matter, and that it is not prioritized, and that this is the change, and it's just something you have to go through. It's kind of like the party line. In fact, only 1 out of 5 OBGYNs are trained in medical school to actually know anything about menopause. It's not even on the curriculum. So of course, like the idea of doing a panel to check your hormone levels, it's not always an option. And even if your doctor might want to do it, it won't be covered with your insurance because it's considered an elective thing to do. But this is why if we talk about it and we share our symptoms, for example, and I don't like to use the word symptoms because then you medicalize menopause. It's not a dysfunction. A disease. It is not disease.
Broken.
It is a natural part of life. And these things do happen. And if women knew that getting hot at night and waking up in a pool of sweat does not mean you're dying, it means that you are probably entering perimenopause. If you gotta pee more than you need normally,
that's me,
honey.
I am peeing all the time. Again, I think I was like, it must be my fibroids. Now I'm going to doctors on Monday. Thank goodness. A list of questions, honey. A list
right.
of questions.
But Felicia, be prepared that your OB, even if she's the best OB, she may not have the knowledge through no fault of her own. It literally wasn't in the medical school curriculum to really drill down on what happens. I mean, they really are like told, we got a day. It's like nutrition. They don't teach the nutrition in medical school either. But menopause is just not on the curriculum really. And so there are there's like 10 common quote unquote symptoms.
Yes, let's talk about them.
Up to 17, up to 37. Like I said, numb fingers and arms. Nobody is saying like, yeah, if you have numb fingers and arms, it could be perimenopause. And that is why it is so important for us to share our stories, because once you hear that, oh yeah, Felicia had numb fingers and arms and Ivy had this and so on and so forth, you don't panic. And so if you are between the age of 40 and 50 and you have symptoms like hot flashes, you do have irregular period cycles, you do have vaginal dryness, you do have weight gain, particularly around the middle, you do have thinning hair. My hair started to thin and I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Oh, it's freaking perimenopause. There you get. You do have joint pain. That's also very common. You're not sleeping as well. Ooh. These are all common issues that happen, manifestations of fluctuating hormones. If you have rage episodes, if you're like, I'm going to kill somebody because they left, a hair on the sink or something, and you're like, why am I so ragey? But on the flip side of that also, if you don't give a anymore about things that used to bother you, there's this definite sense of like, I don't have to care anymore. Like it's almost like a release. You're like, it doesn't bother me, or I'm not going to let that get to me, or I will curse you out because like I don't have enough time to mess around anymore.
So me cursing people out is the menopause, because I mean, some of it might have been.
It's the perimenopause. Well,
I thought it was part of my charm.
That's the perimenopause talking.
That's something I want to talk about. Are there good things that come out of these 3 stages of life? Are there I wouldn't even say benefits, but are there things we can look forward to? Are there positive outcomes? Like, because I'm depressed right now, okay? This conversation is like...
It's depressing, right?
So what might we be able to look forward to as we go through this stage of life?
Okay, so I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. Like, I'm not going to be like, there is something so beautiful about not sleeping and having to pee all night long. It's just, you can commune with you be communing with the moon at night. You can see what life looks like at nighttime when everyone else is sleeping. No. One of the things, I mean, to me, and I started my podcast and sort of selfishly because I wanted to hear how other women had, progressed through menopause or perimenopause and then post, like living out the other side. And there was this one woman who actually elected to have a hysterectomy because she did have fibroids and she was having very serious periods. And I think she was like 48 or 49. And she was very convinced that she was never going to have children. She didn't want to have children. And for her, she was like, the joy of throwing away all my tampons, of not having to deal with the period. She's like, I am so happy. She's like, I wanted to have a party. And when you think about it,
and that's the next service of My Bloody Hell, menopause parties.
No more period parties.
Yes.
Start planning them, honey.
The thing is, people like look. So this is very interesting. So in traditional Chinese cultures and other Asian cultures, the word for menopause is second spring.
Ooh,
and they call it
yes.
I like that for us.
Because it's like your first spring, if you will, you're taking care of your children. You're taking care of your spouse. Their second spring is about taking care of yourself. That's how they conceptualize menopause. And so in Asian cultures, in traditional Asian cultures, it's a welcome time. It is a welcoming time when you don't have to take care of anybody. You don't have to use your womb for anybody, but your body is
Your
yours.
breasts are your own again. They are not going to be used for anybody else's sucking.
You're not nourishing anybody but yourself. Exactly. And it's actually looked at that as like your body has been used for so many other people, metaphorically or physically, right? But you don't have to have that thought anymore that this body could be taken over by, the need to take over somebody else, to take care of somebody else.
I think that's beautiful.
And interestingly, that mentality, there is also data that shows that women in traditional Asian societies, not Asian Americans, because poor things live in America where shit's stressful, but in traditional Asian societies, Asian women have less severe menopausal symptoms than, less hot flashes, less sleeplessness, the physical symptoms. And it's a lot of it. Some people look at diet, maybe it's the soy in the diet, but also very much looking at the mental, the way that it is conceptualized, that level and that almost celebration of having passed through to this second spring, it is celebratory. It is not the way we think, I can't have babies anymore, I'm no longer a woman. Is the only thing that makes you a woman having babies?
Right.
No. I mean,
we've talked about that several times.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think, in Asian culture, the more reverence for being older and being an elder. And so passing into that phase, now you're assured to be passed into that phase of being an elder, which is really, really beautiful. But I have to know, I have a question. So I think about the women in my life. My mother had 6 sisters. She grew up on a farm. And so and she was a nurse. So she was but I can't remember a single conversation that I had with my mother or any of those women in my family about menopause. And I wondered if you guys had the same experience, because, here she was very open about so many things in life, but I can't remember having a single conversation. And I know she was in menopause, which probably explains why she used to haunt the house in the middle of the night all the time, walking up and down. But
so many things make sense now.
It all makes sense. But what about you guys? Did you have that kind of conversation with any of your aunts or any mentors or any your parents at that early age about, even because I don't even remember people talking about the change, because that stuff was whispered. Like when somebody would have a hysterectomy, which nobody would ever say, but they would say she's having woman problems, or she had the surgery to have a woman problem. It was all very quiet and nobody wanted to talk to young people about that. So I don't remember having a single conversation about menopause or the change.
I mean, they would call it the change. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I remember, I'm almost positive now that my mom was in the thick of things when I had my first child. I thought my mother had lost her mind. I just was I thought somehow me becoming a mother had made my mom go crazy. But then when I went and did the math and started researching and learning, I was like, this is all making sense. I think my mother was going through menopause. And I mean, she literally was like a whole different person, just nutso. And then returned back to her regular self a couple years later. And she admitted it later. But at the time, she would have never said that to me. And she told me a whole bunch of things now when I asked her, about the crime scene periods and all these other things. And I'm thinking, why am I 50? And you're just telling me this now, right? But that's the reality is, and this is very unfortunate, is that the best indicator of how we are going to experience perimenopause and when we will actually hit menopause is our mother. So it's unfortunately so many mothers don't share, they don't tell, they maybe pass on before we have hit that stage. And so we don't have anybody to say because again, you can't look at the textbook and say, Black women hit menopause at this age. I guess I'll hit it at this age. The average age is this. I've already passed that age. What's happening? I don't know. You look to your mother. Most the best predictor of when you're going to hit menopause is when your mother hit menopause. It's not perfect, but it's
another hard conversation we need to have with our mamas.
Exactly. And when you say they never talked about it, well, again, one of the reasons that I started My Bloody Hell also was I literally have on the website, like, I want to be the last generation to be silenced over this topic. And I'm Generation X, and people suggest that, of course, it's going to be Gen X that, opens the door and opens our mouths to talk about menopause. But our daughters should not have to be like, what's happening to me? Why is this happening? And when is this going to happen? And all of the questions that we have. And again, it is so unpredictable. It is terrible to be blindsided by a crime scene period. I had a cycle that was like 19 days long. I was like, Jesus. What? But I'm like, I know what it means. Like, I'm not freaking out. Yeah. I would have been like, I have some horrible cancer or something, I would have thought, if I hadn't been so deeply invested in researching this and finding out, what does perimenopause actually look like? And the more serious thing that I just have to bring up is that understanding that you are in perimenopause. And again, there are people, like I interviewed a woman who went through perimenopause with no physical symptoms at all. She had the rage episode. She divorced her husband. Like, a whole bunch of things happened.
And then beat him up in a parking lot.
She's like,
long time coming.
Like, I don't have any. It was like, she's like, I don't have patience anymore she quit her job. She divorced her husband, but she didn't have any hot flashes, no night sweats, nothing. But it was all up here. It was like,
yeah.
But you know why we don't want to talk about this? Because men are always looking for a reason to say why women should not be in positions of power or influence. Yes. And one of them has always been, well, when she's going to be PMSing, she's going to be throwing the nukes out there. That's and we're going to invade Russia. Right. Or, and if you say that there are symptoms where I might have rage episodes, then it makes even more trivial women's rage on a regular basis to things that are totally like required for us to be enraged about, because then it's just, oh, she must be PMSing, she must be perimenopausal, she must be going through the change. Exactly. And so I have a feeling that part of what would not want us to talk about this more publicly is just ensuring that people can't use these kinds of things against us. Men get enraged all the time for no reason at all. But, but if there is a medical reason, then suddenly we're crazy and we can't be president.
And this is historically speaking, this is, Ivy, everything you said is absolutely right. We would be persecuted. We would be demonized for, anything we say, because it's like, oh, I bet she's menopausal. Like, now that we know all about that, you're going to public about it. She's hitting that age. That could be it. Or we're not even going to promote her, or we're going to deny her these opportunities because, oh, well, again, it's the hormones. But that is absolutely accurate. And it has deeper, more sinister roots, because from the time we had the witch burnings in this country and in Europe even earlier, the women who were most likely burned at the stake were menopausal women. Women who were in menopause, like the word crone. This is wild. The definition of a witch was literally a menopausal woman, like thinner hair. Remember the whiskers on the chin? That's what happened.
Oh, what Donna calls her nanny goat hairs. What?
Women who would speak out against, who had rage episodes. Like, it was like, she's a witch. She's consorting with the devil. So literally, again, this is all this research I've been doing, but the most common age group of a burned witch was a post-menopausal woman. She couldn't make babies anymore, so she was useless. And
she wouldn't stay in her place anymore.
And the other thing was, they assumed that because she was barren, because she could no longer give birth, she might put a hex on the young women. Like, she was considered even dangerous to, fertile women. So this idea that we shouldn't talk about it's biblical. It's historical. Like, we understand that people will use this, particularly men in power, will use our change, so to speak, against us. And we have to continue to look feminine. We have to continue to seem to be fertile. All of these things have been used against women. I mean, before the Salem witch trials were the 1600s, but I'm talking the same things happening, in the 1400s in Europe. And even it's sad, but even in some countries in Africa and Asia today, women who are menopausal are considered like they don't want them around because they're considered to potentially be witches who could bring bad luck, like drought, onto a community because they are dried up, if you will.
Well, you know what? This is what is on the other side of menopause for me now. Because Laura, you have just turned it on for me. I am going to become a dangerous woman. That's what I'm going to become. I'm going to be something to be feared.
Yes, honey.
I'm going to set the world on fire. And if you cross me, I will bring drought to your crops. Okay?
Oh, okay. I feel like a new superhero is forming in my head, honey. Forming in my head. But speaking of, I love this conversation so much. You talked about America and the stresses of America. Let's talk about menopause and Black women in particular, and women of color, because Black and Latino women enter menopause earlier and experience more severe symptoms than white women because of the stressors of systemic racism. Like, what should Black women be thinking about, and how can we care for ourselves as we go through this stage?
Yes, very importantly, because we've been talking a lot about kind of the mental and psychological, feelings around menopause, but there's very severe, potentially life-threatening changes in our bodies that if we're not aware of them and we don't take care of ourselves, they just impact our physical health and our life expectancy. So one of the things I had said is that, one of the benefits of menopause is that you don't have a period anymore. Yay, that actually seems like a positive thing. I mean, even financially, it's a positive thing. You don't have to purchase, have feminine hygiene products anymore. However, menopause does mean a lowering of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And estrogen is a very important hormone that does so much more than regulate our period. It also is important in bone density regulation as well as cholesterol regulation. So once we are having lower levels of estrogen, we are at higher risk of osteoporosis, which is, having more fragile bones. So you're more risk of breaking a bone, and you're at more risk for heart attacks, high cholesterol, heart disease in general. And so when you hear that Black women and Latino women hit menopause earlier, again, you might think, oh, that's great, that I don't have to deal with my period earlier. But no, what that means is that you have to start worrying about things like osteoporosis and heart attacks earlier than a white woman. So what does that mean? It means that we have to do a lot to make sure that we are physically taking care of ourselves. And it doesn't mean that it's obviously, like, my grandma's 105. Okay?
Yes, honey.
It does not mean that Black women, she's 105 and kicking it, right? She's
honey.
Like living her best life. But so it doesn't mean, like, it's not a death sentence. What it means is we have to be proactive with our health. Yes. It means taking calcium supplements. It means
managing your diet in a different way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are, things like intermittent fasting has been shown to be very helpful, not to lose weight necessarily, but to regulate insulin, to decrease inflammation, to help with heart and bone lack of bone diminishing. I don't know what like bone growth. I mean, your bones aren't really growing, but it can help them from diminishing. Your diet, trying to increase soy in your diet. As I mentioned before, a lot of research has looked at Asian diets, why Asian women aren't suffering as severely as women in the West. And soy is definitely a big part of that. There was one research study that was really a poorly done research study that suggested that eating soy would cause breast cancer. And it turns out that particular study that was widely spread, like in the early 90s, was done with like rats, and the rats were given something like the equivalent of like 800 bottles of soy milk a day. And yes, that did cause cancer, but nobody is
the rats was going through it. Them poor rats, honey.
800 bottles of soy milk a day. So things like soy products they perform a similar response as your natural estrogens. It's not the same. So you can't eat as much tofu to just replace all the estrogen you're losing. But if you can incorporate soy into your diet, if you can incorporate pumpkin seeds into your diet, which have a lot of magnesium and iron, there are things that you can change your diet, as we were saying. And don't think about taking things out. Think about adding the things adding
in.
extra, like
Yes.
soy, magnesium, iron, calcium. These are the things that you want to be adding to your diet. You want to be adding functional exercise. Again, if somebody says to me, you got to start lifting weights, I'm like, okay, I'm going to die then because I'm not lifting weights. But if you can just keep movement into your routine, regular movement, if it's walking, if it's vacuuming your house, whatever it is, but on a regular basis, so that these muscles and these joints and bones don't get stiff and out of use. And of course, because cholesterol no longer is being regulated by that estrogen, stop eating barbecue ribs and other high-fat foods on a regular basis. I had ribs for dinner
last night. I ain't gonna lie.
Not all the time,
on a regular basis.
But
Exactly.
look, I will put in a plug for. I know that this. I will put in a plug for weightlifting. So as women, particularly as you age, everyone believes that cardio is sort of going to save your life. But for muscular health, for joint health, and for bone density, weightlifting can be good. Nobody's saying you have to go out and be an Olympic weightlifter.
No.
But, being able to do a few squats with a little weight in your hand, being able to lift a couple of things over your head a few times, being able to pick things up and put them down is a good thing for your bones, your joints, and your muscles.
Let me tell you, I love lifting, honey. We talk about dangerous woman. I feel like I can throw people around. I mean, that's the goal, right? Like to be able to just throw a if I need to. So I love lifting weights, honey. Yes.
If some dude rolls up on you and tries to tie you
to a
stick and tell you he's about to burn you, if these women have been out here weightlifting and can toss some of these MFs around, wouldn't have been no Salem witch trials. Wouldn't have been none of that.
Honestly, weightlifting is the best thing you can do. You absolutely, it's so good. And even weightlifting, like having more muscle burns fat. So weightlifting, building muscle is the best thing you can do. If you hate weightlifting though, do some kind of weight bearing exercise, right? So if that, you could just walk upstairs or walk up a hill. Like, as I say, my thighs are the heaviest weight on me. So if I have to lift them to go up a flight, a mountain, whatever it is, but you do need that weight. You need to build muscle before it's like too late, so to speak, because that will protect your bones.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying is that there are things we can be doing now while we're in perimenopause, whether it be diet regulation, whether it be watching our own health, whether it be wearing lighter pajamas at night so that you don't sweat through, but
sleeping
things that
naked.
we can be doing to both add to our comfort level as well as our overall health.
Absolutely. And the thing is that every woman is different. And you really, I think this comes with age. And if you pay attention, it can make your menopause experience less painful, if you will. And that is that, diet and exercise together can actually, for example, you may realize that if you eat a lot of dairy after a certain hour in the day, you have night sweats. You have hot flashes. Red wine tends to make a lot of people have worse hot flashes. And then you're like, oh, if I don't drink the red wine, I don't have the hot flashes. A friend of mine says if she eats sugar in combination with dairy, after certain, she'll have wake up in a swimming pool of water. So she just doesn't eat. She's like, I can't eat ice cream at night anymore. I just can't. So sometimes it's not like you don't have any control over the number of hot flashes, the number of night sweats, the sleeplessness. Sometimes you can find if I walk or if I eat this or I don't eat that you can actually find that there are things that really diminish the severity and intensity of the kind of negative symptoms that you might be experiencing. And that, I think, is also, it's like, when you get to this time in your life, I think no matter what, and that's why I love Honey Child, I hope the whole idea about this is because going into 40, you're like, it is about you. It is the second spring. Yes. You're not supposed to be focusing on, first of all, you're not concerned so much about what everybody else thinks and this, that, and the other.
Yes.
You know it's important. You know what you want out of life. And you're like, it is about me, right? Not in a selfish way, but like it makes the most sense for me to be about me, to give me the lift up, to put my resources in me, because I know what I am capable of doing.
Yes.
I'm done educating myself.
Yes.
I have what it takes. Let me go out in the world and do it. And I don't have to be like
take
afraid,
us to church,
waiting to see. That's what I'm saying. So even when we're talking about taking care of ourselves, we're much more in tune and able, and hopefully financially in a place where we can say, if I need to eat this organic wine because that's the one that makes me feel good, or the microgreens that only grow in, I don't know, wherever, I'm going to get that for me because that makes me feel good, makes me feel healthy, or get that membership to the spa, the massage, whatever it is, because
get that
that's
escort.
where it needs to be.
I love this so much because I did say get that escort.
That in.
I did.
She tried to slip that in. I was like, an escort? Ain't nobody said nothing about an escort.
Get that escort who's going to understand that you have different needs. But what I love about this,
without strings
exactly, and without stressing you about your body, get out my face. So what I love about this conversation too is just like how everything is connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, mm-hmm. I love the conversation about the perspective. I love the conversation about also that as we enter this stage that things evolve, right? We may have to do things differently. We have to look at our health differently. We have to look at our mental well-being differently. It's not the same as it was in our 20s. We actually have to be very proactive about how we're evolving, how we're taking care of ourselves. And I'm actually gaining a lot from this conversation of that. Like, honey, you need to be evolving in terms of how you're taking care of yourself.
But also being a woman, this is not unknown territory for us. I was just in a trainer session yesterday where I was explaining to my trainer, because I was on my period, just explaining to my trainer the differences. Like, I was like, look, I'm much more tired. I can't eat everything I want to eat. Like I said to him, look, I just want to poop all the time when I'm on my period. And so, as a woman,
my mother says it's the best time to get cleaned out. My mom says the period is the best time to get cleaned out.
I will tell you what the situation is. The situation is all I want to do is poop.
Clean it out, honey. Get cleaned out.
But the point is that even we now, like during our period, I know the things that I can't eat during my period that I can eat all the time when I'm not in my period that suddenly bother me in a certain way, are going to cause me to have stomach upset, are going to cause me to have headaches. Like, there are certain things we have already been doing as women, this monitoring of certain things that we feel like we do instinctually. But so like now it's just this matter of now going through this new evolution and finding out what works in this time period.
Yes.
So all the stuff that you've learned before, the way that you've sort of like picked and choose and thought about, okay, well, when I ate that, this is how I felt later. I was much more depressed during my period when I eat this kind of way as opposed to this other way. Now it's just another way of using those same tools that we all have already and just applying them to this new phase of life. So it doesn't have to feel like, oh, now I have to think about magnesium in my diet. No, it's just a new way of thinking like, okay, we've been doing this your whole life. You've been trying to figure out how to be a woman in the right way. Now you have to do it in a new phase. That's all. It's new, but it's not different.
Absolutely. It's part of the, like you said, it's the evolution of being a woman. There's this one book, and I'm forgetting the name of the book itself, but the whole idea is to explain this thing called the grandmother hypothesis. And the grandmother hypothesis is this hypothesis that mankind evolved to survive as a species because of grandmothers. In other words, women who were postmenopausal, because grandmothers, again, meaning postmenopausal women, were able to take care of everybody else in the tribe, in the community, without worrying about getting pregnant. And that if you didn't have these women who were wise, they knew which berries and things to eat and the safe places were, and they weren't going to be weakened by pregnancy, they were able to take on the role of caretaking, and not just like caretaking, but literally taking care of the tribe without the weakness of childbirth weighing them down. And if we didn't have that wisdom, those knowledgeable women, then mankind would not exist. We would have died out as a species. Wow. It's called the grandmother hypothesis. So our wisdom and our abilities made mankind survive into modern times.
Honey,
so
I'm done. I've done my work then.
I believe it.
So this third season, this third stage, this second spring, like we should be walking into this. Again, the whole ethos for your podcast for this, we should be walking into this third stage, this second spring with plans. Like, this is what this time of my life is going to be about. We should not be mourning like, oh, I can't have babies anymore. It should be like, I'm free. I am free to do, I'm smart.
Hallelujah.
I don't care. I got the money that I've been saving. I know what I want. It's about me.
Yeah,
it's about me. I really want to do a study of how many women in menopause divorce their husbands. I just feel like you dragging me down. I just got to be free. Like, I feel like once
talk about losing weight, honey. Losing weight.
That's what I'm saying. Throw this out. We free. We have to get everything out of this boat that's weighing us down.
Yes.
That's what it's about. It's like, get rid of the excess and be about what in this stage of life.
I love that.
I mean, to me, it's physically exhausting in some ways, but it's also like you're releasing. Every period I get now, I'm like, one less to go. Let's release it all.
The countdown.
What's next? Freedom.
I love that. I love that so much. You were talking my talk. Freedom is one of my words. Well, tell us about what is your dream for My Bloody Hell? Tell us about the podcast, the community, and the dream going forward.
Honestly, okay, I think I started out saying that I have a million ideas for different businesses. Yeah. So My Bloody Hell really is a passion project. Like, I don't look at it as the thing that I'm going to, like, on my tombstone, she started My Bloody Hell, or she was the menopause queen. I really, like, as a woman who's going through menopause or going through perimenopause herself, I'm obsessed. Every time I learn something, I feel like I want to share it. So selfishly, I created this for myself, but I also saw such a need. So really, I would just like to continue. The podcast has one season, and we're about to start the second season in January 2023.
Yes, honey.
I really just want that podcast to grow and be what I wanted it to be, which is a place for women to hear other women tell their stories, not feel so alone. And I want, a massive sponsor.
Yes.
Yes. One of these
Speak it into being.
Hello.
Companies,
Unilever.
so that, yeah, exactly. There's so many companies that are, available and, could sponsor, because we are, a market that needs products. Like, I don't have any, problem, with the idea of a sponsor. Like, sometimes I'm a little precious about the things that I create. Like, I don't want to be attached to some corporate. No, I do. I want the corporations to sponsor the podcast, because if you genuinely have a product that women going through perimenopause could use, like, I want to bring that to them. Like, I just want to be like the perimenopause whisperer for women of color. I just want to be that, let's talk about it. Let's get it out in the open. And I want more than anything to just kind of create a record so that other people can come and and hear our voices, hear our stories, use it as for research to create the next best product, whatever it is. Because we need to just have documentation that we're here, we have our stories, we have our experiences, and that can be shared with other people. So that's what I want My Bloody Hell. It really is a passion project, and it's like my service work.
Yes.
Yes. My real work is in another realm, but My Bloody Hell, like, I tried to stop doing it. Like, I tried to be like, okay, I did it, I'm done, but I can't stop it. It's too
now
important.
You know too much, girl.
Girl, I know. What am I going to do with all this knowledge? Like, if I don't just get on the mic and be like, hey, guess what I found out?
Yes.
Well, this has been one of the most I just feel like I've learned so
So
much during
much.
this conversation, particularly the connections back to history and context of how people think about this menopausal area and how we should be thinking about it differently. I
Yes.
love this idea.
Yes.
We are
Good.
all going to be dangerous women.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, honey.
So, Lori, if you had some information back in the day, what would you wish someone had told you about menopause or perimenopause beforehand? What was the advice that you wish you had as a younger person?
I wish I knew that it was an actual period of time, not a date. I didn't realize that I was looking at years for this to be like a gradual decreasing of hormones and that it would have all of these random symptoms. I wish somebody had just literally given me the list of symptoms and said around 45, 46, you should be expecting this, and this.
Yes.
Because that would have saved me from so much anguish. And
Yeah.
also just, it's almost like if you know that the bad thing is going to be over at this time, you can get through it. But if you think it's something completely different, it gobsmacks you, right? It just makes it seem terrible. So I think if I just had known it's 4 to 7 years, these are the things that could happen. And also, these are some of the things that you might want to do ahead of time to prepare your body so that it's in its best condition and shape. I think that's what I wish I had known. And I think that's what every woman should know, is just to be prepared for what to expect.
I love that. I love that.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. So, Ivy, that was a great conversation. What are you going to do differently? What are you taking away from this fantastic conversation we had with Lori?
Well, I'm going to be okay with being dangerous.
Yes.
I think I'm already.
I'm going to say you're already kind of dangerous, though. You're already a little scary.
Well, there's a couple of things I'm taking away from this. One is, I've always thought that nutrition and like food as medicine is an important thing. And it's a great reminder that doesn't stop. So like managing and thinking about what things my body is going to need in the future, I think is going to be really important. 2, getting my fitness back, because I can't be up in here having my period stop because I'm chubby. So getting my fitness back in order. And then last but not least, I'm always in my entrepreneurial mindset. So I'm like, what could I be thinking about to help women like me who are, my age, who are going through perimenopause, who are thinking about this, and who are going to go through menopause, like that day when that shift transition happens, like what would I think I need? And can I be a person who can help solve some of those problems for women?
Yes.
So I definitely am thinking about that in the future. What about you, Felicia?
I think it was just kind of a wake-up call to go to the doctors, get all the tests run to understand where I am. Am I approaching perimenopause? Am I in perimenopause? And to then like get very specific on the things that I need in this specific stage of life, right? I think that I have been lucky to kind of just wing it. I want to get very specific and intentional and strategic about really taking care of myself, and also continuing to embrace this second spring of life and being grateful to be in this time that I've made it this far, and like really harnessing that energy, that no fucks, that power that we have, that wisdom that Lori talked about, to make this second
the ownership
spring
over yourself and your body.
Yeah, even more fruitful, even better. So I'm inspired and excited about that.
But let's actually transition, because I want to take you through, we always have a set of questions that we ask our guests. We call them our honey cues.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that we get a chance, Lori, to have your thoughts and your perspectives from the honey cues. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's rapid fire.
I'm so nervous, but I'm ready.
It's rapid fire. First thing that comes to your mind.
In one sentence, who are you?
I am a colorful creative.
She didn't say the menopause queen, which is I thought she was going to say.
I love that.
I am the menopause queen. Who are you becoming?
I'm stealing yours, Ivy. I am becoming a dangerous woman.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
What's your secret desire?
My secret desire, seriously, is I want to be the host. I want to have one chance to be the host of Saturday Night Live.
Oh,
I love that. Put that in the universe.
I've never said that out loud.
I love that.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Doritos.
Girl. Especially right now when I'm on my period.
Wait,
You
is
kidding me?
it regular or Cool Ranch?
No, not Cool Ranch.
Not
no.
Cool Ranch.
And I swear to God, only the Doritos in Spain. I could never eat Doritos in the States. They smelled like hamster feet to me. But the Doritos in Spain somehow taste different. In fact, when we get off this thing, I'm going to go. I keep a stash in the kitchen. I hide it from my children. I'm going to go eat some when we're done.
What do you love most about being a honey?
I think of honeys as like awesome Black women in their 40s and beyond. And I love being a honey because I feel like I am finally my true self.
Yes. Isn't it amazing
and
how it takes 40 years to get here but now we're here, honey. We're here. Yes. Yes.
Last but not least, name a honey that deserves her flowers right now.
This was very hard, but I'm going to say Bernadine Evaristo, who is a Black
honey.
British writer, right? I just finished reading her book, what is it called? It's called Manifesto, like how to live a creative life. And she's just so amazing. And she is a writer who has been a writer since she was like 12 years old and has done all different types of writing and just never gave up on her belief that she had the right, particularly as a Black woman in England. She's like 10 years older than me. I think she's in her early 60s. And so when she was growing up in the UK, being a Black mixed race woman was a very difficult thing to be. And yet she never wavered in her conviction and her commitment to be a writer. And I'm 50 and I feel like now I am finally like, I am here for that. And I'm not going to, have to get a official job or official title. Like I am claiming my title, my identity as a creative writer. And that's where I am. My Bloody Hell is a passion project, but my focus right now is working on my role, not only as a creative writer, but as I say creative provocateur for my fellow Black women writers to also encourage them to claim that identity and get their stories out into the world.
Yes, honey. We love that. What a fantastic way to sort of close out. So tell us where our audience can find you on the internet and all that good stuff.
Sure. So you can find me easily under my name, Lori L with the middle initial, Lori L Tharps, THARPS on Instagram at Lori L Tharps. I just launched a new platform called Read, Write, and Create, and that is it's a sanctuary for BIPOC writers. And it really is my place to do all things about the written word and encourage Black people, Black women particularly, to just get their stories out into the world. If you want more information about menopause and perimenopause and to find that community and that podcast, just go to mybloodyhell.com, and we're at mybloodyhell on Instagram as well. So I'm behind both places. So wherever you go, it's me. But those are the best places to find me.
Thank you
so much for joining us.
I am
today.
so inspired by this conversation to take care of myself, like as like that reinforcement that we need to hear, but also that inspiration to walk into this second spring with our heads held high. And so thank you.
Child, please. If you want it, you got it, go get it. Child,